Destroying Camartage so she could destroy America Chavez and take her powers was a hard pitch for someone being reasonable, but that's just scratching the surface of her power. She did something it took Thanos the entire Infinity Gauntlet to do, while holding back Thanos and crying. How? Secretary Ross's and his concern over the efforts of the Avengers tends to be on his original hate, Bruce Banner and his alter ego the Hulk, and Thor, likening them to nuclear warheads in Civil War when no one knew where they were. It seems that everyone but Vision slept on exactly how powerful and dangerous lonely Wanda Maximoff was. Tony had an idea of how powerful she was, and it scared him. Being Tony, he didn't necessarily deal with things that scared him that well. In her case, putting her under house arrest at the Avengers compound, hoping Vision could keep her there. He could not. It turns out, the sadder she got, the more powerful she got, and she was powerful sad. She lost her homeland, her brother, was forced to destroy the thing that kept the synthezoid she had fallen in love with alive, only for that to not matter, turned to dust, only to return 5 years later, not even allowed to see or mourn her loss, while everyone else just moved on. And thus Westview, Agatha, the Darkhold, interdimensionality, and a string pop Mr. Fantastic. But before she unlocked the power of her inner sadness, she already displayed some pretty epic power in destroying that Mind Stone. But, how? The general principle is said out loud in Infinity War. The only way to prevent Thanos from gaining the Mind Stone is to get rid of the Mind Stone. Preferably after Shuri removed it from Vision's forehead, but definitely before Thanos arrives for it. The suggestion comes from Vision himself, who says that since her power operates at the Mind Stone's frequency, she's the only one who can destroy it. We already know that Strucker was experimenting with the Mind Stone, and that resulted in the Maximoff twins getting powers. But we learn in episode 8 of WandaVision, called Previously On, that Wanda didn't necessarily receive powers as much as her already latent powers got a power up. That's part of what made it so hard to pin down what her power was. Most of the heroes, including her brother, it's pretty straightforward. Go fast, climb walls, fly and shoot beams, but she was already wielding chaos magic like a self-taught phenom jams on a guitar without knowing what a chord is. The Mind Stone did more than just unlock her powers, though. As an Infinity Stone, it's one of the most powerful artifacts in the Marvel Universe. Each Infinity Stone manipulates a single aspect of creation: mind, space, reality, time, power, and soul. Each of those stones are massively powerful. The Mind Stone happened to be the first Infinity Stone that Thanos had gathered, lending it to Loki so he'd take Earth and retrieve the space and time stones that were stored on the planet. Loki was able to use the power of the Mind Stone to control Clint Barton as well as others in his nefarious plans. When it wound up in Strucker's hands, the primary power it gave Wanda's wiggly fingers is to go into people's memories and trap them there. How do you even find out that's a thing you can do? Perhaps the biggest demonstration of what the Mind Stone allowed Wanda to do is Westview. In an explosion of grief, the latent Mind Stone power allowed her to take over the minds of everyone in town with her chaos magic, upping the ante by physically changing everything to match the reality she was creating. Perhaps the biggest connection to the Mind Stone in the whole Westview situation would be Vision himself. Not just the one she created out of whole cloth, but Vision 2.0 that Hayward tricked her into jumpstarting. It was her connection that initially made the Avengers, who weren't Tony Stark, nervous. When she checked her connection to the Mind Stone, she only felt chaos. Before Corvus Glaive showed Vision what a glaive was by shoving one through his chest, Wanda checked on the Mind Stone and only felt Vision. Wanda's inherent powers, enhanced by the Mind Stone and a healthy dose of sadness and rage, all made her one of only two to stand one-on-one with Thanos. The other, another product of an Infinity Stone, Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel. While the connection is complex, the principle behind how she's able to destroy it relies a little bit on regular old physics. As we know from our high school science classes, and a trilogy of Ant-Man movies, we're all made of atoms. Atoms are made up of elementary particles. So, in effect, we're all Particle Man. So when we get in the water, we get wet, solving one of pop music's great mysteries. Next up, what's the beef between Particle Man and Triangle Man? Where were we? Oh, right, particles and vibrations. Atoms essentially are just really tiny things made up of even tinier things circling each other. There are complex questions like if there's so much space in atoms in between atoms, why don't we just pass through each other like ghosts? Or how did the atoms that are me not end up mingling with the atoms that are my keyboard? But that's for people who didn't major in a liberal art. What it means for our purposes is that since everything is made up of tiny other things spinning around, everything has a vibration. Not only that, but it has a vibration that's largely unique, and, for the most part, imperceptible. But if you put two things with a compatible or similar vibration together, they can accelerate. And if things accelerate enough, they stop wanting to hang out with each other as much as they did. So, they fly apart, thus destroying what seems indestructible, like an Infinity Stone. It's also why Captain Marvel was able to get a bit of a power-up from the Space Stone when grabbing Thanos' gauntlet, forcing him to palm the Power Stone to get her off of it. Surviving an encounter with a Power Stone seems like a sketchy way to try and get powers, especially when you see what happens to Red Skull and the Collector's assistant when they palm one. Best stick to unethical self-experimentation. Please don't really do that. You won't get powers. You'll get ambulance rides.